What's up, patients, and welcome to another episode of the Doc Docs. I'm your host, Dr. Nick, and I'm here to discuss a really exciting topic called the Mandela Effect. The Mandela Effect is a phenomenon that was first coined in 2010 by a blogger named Fiona Broom. She discovered, while at a convention called Dragon Con, that she had this memory of Nelson Mandela that was actually false. She thought that he had died in prison in the 1980s, when in fact he had lived until 2013, well into his 90s. Now, the Mandela effect is very interesting because it's not just one or two people that experience this sort of memory, which doesn't really exist. It's a collective consciousness of many, many people. One great example is the Berenstain Bears. Many people think it's spelled with an E-I-N or I-E-N. It's actually Stain, S-T-A-I-N. Another great example that's very common is the Monopoly Man. People think that the Monopoly Man has a monocle. He does not wear a monocle. A lot of butlers in cartoons have monocles, but he never does. And then you ask people about Curious George. They'll tell you that he has a tail. Curious George was never drawn with a tail. This is something that just does not exist in the books. People have such conviction that what they believe is true that they're willing to bet large amounts of money that they are indeed correct, and they are convinced that what they hold in their heads is truth. Speaking of which, Doc Hogg, do you think we should take some bets on the street to make some extra cash for, to get some better lights and some cameras and maybe this boom here? No? Okay. Anyways, let's go out to the streets to our beautiful hostess who decided to talk to some passersby and see if they have any kind of agreement with this Mandela effect.
Hey patients, I'm Jennifer Leone and I'm here with Doc Docs. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Jennifer Leone TV. And today we're talking about the Mandela effect. We're gonna find out right now by talking to people on Venice Boardwalk, trying to figure out if they know what you know or what you think you know. So let's go see what they have to say. We're talking false memories. Have you heard of that kind of thing?
Yeah.
So I want to see if you remember something that we remember, but if you look it up on Google or YouTube, it's totally different. So I'm going to throw out some movie lines, and I want to see what you think is the actual movie line in the movie right now. So, did you ever see Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs with the evil queen, and she looks in the mirror, and what does she say to that mirror?
Mirror, mirror on the wall. I think it was Mirror, mirror is like the original.
Mirror, mirror.
It's mirror, mirror.
Mirror, mirror.
Everyone thinks that, but if you look it up on YouTube, it says magic mirror.
Like when she first started talking to the mirror?
Yep.
What wouldst thou know, my queen?
Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?
That's a good one.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have no idea.
I'll call the mirror magic. If I was gonna ask like for something huge, I'd be like, magic mirror, hey, what's up? I wouldn't be like, hey, what's up, mirror? Can I get this? They're like, no.
What do you think is the cause of this? Why do you think it's so different now?
I don't know. I find that weird, though. It's kind of like they're trying to change our childhood memories.
Right?
So, yeah.
Like, how though? Like, who's they?
I don't know, the government.
So you think it's time travel? Like, that's hand in hand, time travel and alternate realities?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably not alternate realities because everything is reality, but like going back in time or alternating some shit.
The Berenstain Bears, do you remember those?
Yeah, I read those books a lot.
So apparently now it's spelt completely different, and it's Bearstain.
I looked at,
Yeah,
for some reason I looked it
saw
up
that
recently.
Yeah, we saw that
I
recently.
don't know
We
why.
were really confused about that.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? Yeah, we were wondering
I just
about
maybe
that.
didn't know how to pronounce it.
No,
when I
it
was
was
a kid,
Berenstein
but-
Bears.
That's weird, because I don't remember them like that.
No one does. No one does. You're not fooling us. We all know it was Bearstain Bears.
That's messing up history.
But you read them a lot when you were a kid, so you know for a fact it's Bearstain Bears.
Right, yeah.
Life is like a box of chocolates.
Oh, yeah.
Never know what you're gonna get. Is that the line?
Yeah, that sounds.
What's the real line? What do you remember?
He said, Mama always said, life is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you'll get.
That's not it though.
Word?
I know.
A
know.
lot of weed.
No, hey, it's okay because it's not the weed because we all remember the same thing.
Yeah.
But now it's different. Star Wars. Darth Vader says to Luke, what does he say?
Okay, what's the line, Sloth? I have no idea.
You should ask Doug.
Luke, I am your mother.
Really switch it up for 2016. Is it Luke, I am your father? Or is it something else?
I remember that, yeah. I remember, yeah, those lines.
The actual line is, no, I'm your father, instead of Luke, I'm your father.
Really? Wow, did not know that.
He told me you killed him. No, I am your father.
Changing history. That's what it is.
That's what it is, right?
Yeah. Someone's
No,
changing it.
no other. I think maybe for like a kick, just to like, just
But why? Because like Star Wars, a lot of people are like dead on Star Wars, like it's their life, and so for you to change something like that, it would mess someone up.
We recently had the great privilege of interviewing physicist Cynthia Sue Larson, who is a best-selling author and enthusiast of the Mandela effect. Let's see what she had to say.
I'm Cynthia Sue Larson, and I'm an author and spiritual and intuitive life coach, and I'm an expert in this field of quantum jumping, reality shifts, and the Mandela effect. And how I started studying it was that I was noticing things appearing, disappearing, transforming. The only thing that matched the kind of bizarre stuff I was seeing was to just take this really radical notion that maybe quantum behavior doesn't just happen in the so-called quantum realm. Maybe there is no quantum realm. Maybe everything is quantum, and we just don't usually notice it.
For like the general public who may not be familiar with quantum theory and the superposition and all that, can you, in layman's terms, can you describe what it is?
Anybody over 40 is really going to be like, oh my gosh, unless they've studied quantum physics, and even then they're not going to really believe this because it's not what they were taught, with the exception of people studying the placebo effect. The placebo effect basically is just when you tell yourself, for example, I got a good night's sleep last night, even though the neighbors were making a racket, there was a loud party, the police came. Research has proven that all you have to do is tell yourself, I had a great night's sleep last night. And not only will you feel like you had a great night's sleep, but if you're given a series of tests, whether it's cognitive or fine motor skill, whatever, you'll find that your performance on that test matches the performance of someone who's had a good night's sleep. The superposition of states is imagining, what if there absolutely already are many different versions of you out there. There's one who's had that good night's sleep, and then there's one that you remember, what a horrible night's sleep you just got. So what happened? So within the realm of quantum physics, when you go back to that idea of when you learn in school that there are molecules that make up everything that's physical. So if I'm holding a coffee cup here, that coffee cup is made of a whole bunch of molecules, and inside the molecules there are atoms, and you just get smaller and smaller. And what scientists learned about quantum physics back in the 1900s is that you can take an experiment such as a double slit experiment, and the observer is going to have an effect on whether you witness something that looks like waves or particles on the background screen. What this means is it seems like the particle knows when you're watching, long story short. So if a particle knows when you're watching, like if someone's measuring whether it goes through a particular slit, then it looks like it did that and it went through that split, and it acts like a paintball splat on the background screen. But if you're not really measuring it, it knows you're not measuring it, and then it acts like a wave diffraction pattern. And this is even true if you're firing one photon at a time through the double slit and onto the screen. So how can you possibly have one photon interfering with itself? The only conclusion is it must be kind of in a smear, like it's all over the place, like every single possible path that photon could take, it's taking, and it's leaving evidence of it on the background screen. There are a lot of principles within quantum physics that we're noticing in the Mandela effect. We're seeing things like dead people being alive again. That would be an example of an alternate history embodying superposition of states. But what's weird is we can remember that things were different. That has never been expected or explained by quantum physics. So it's an example of how we're noticing things that currently fall outside the way quantum physics is currently being taught. Some people look at this and say time travel and space travel are all possible, and it's all the same thing because it's a time-space continuum after all. And I have seen evidence of people getting to my house before they actually arrived here. It has been considered a common experience in parts of Scandinavian countries, and so they even have words for it. Actually, the Vardegger effect. It's commonly noticed that people, you can hear them stomping their boots on the porch and talking and laughing. And if anybody goes to the door, the people are not there yet. And like, oh yeah, this happens. It's just a Vardegger effect. Oh right, I guess they'll be here soon then. Yeah, I guess so. We just heard them. So it's not typical in America, but the fact that there's a word for it and people understand it, that tells you something. Confabulation, I think that's an explanation used by detractors of the Mandela effect when they say, obviously, people's memory is faulty and you can't depend on what you think you remember. And that's all well and good, except some of the sorts of reality shifts or Mandela effects that I've experienced have to do with muscle memory, like turning a knob on my washing or drying machine. And one day it totally was backwards. I didn't even know how to operate the machine that I'd had for years because it didn't work the same way. I've been editing this Reality Shifters newsletter every month since 1999, and when I get firsthand reports from people, I do fact-checking. I make sure, I just got one today where they thought they'd noticed a change in a Jerry Lewis movie in the dialogue. But I do thorough research. I go to check to see, well, let's take a look at the script and the screenplay and see what's going on. Oh, here's that dialogue's not missing. It's over here later in the movie, so it looks like it's still there. And then when you expand it to groups of people, the Mandela effect is really about groups of people noticing something, and so that gives it credibility. It becomes a growing momentum. People start demanding to know what's going on.
There was a theory that I saw where basically we're in a program and the Mandela effect could possibly be explained by slight glitches in the code, like a 1 where a 0 should be.
I personally feel sort of this disinclination to believe in living in a virtual reality matrix because although I see that reality seems very pliable, and I do agree that we are primarily conscious beings, I feel there's, this is the spiritual side of me, but I can't help but feel like there's this kind of almost a sacred quality to nature, that you feel something different when you really are in real nature, and no matter how good the virtual reality gets, it's never going to replace what it feels like to sit down and talk to your friend. If you've heard of David Chalmers talking about the hard problem of consciousness being qualia, like how can you tell if something's really real, and why is my experience of red different than yours and different than someone else's, then if we can't explain that, then we don't quite have it all together. And I think that that's inextricably interwoven with this whole idea of the glitches in the matrix and this fact that we might be in a literal mathematical matrix. I would say we're just calling it that because that's our top level of technology right now. Just give us 20 years, we'll have something better, and we'll say, oh, life is actually like a, bibimbap, whatever. It's like it's our artificial intelligence, quantum computing, bibimbap, something we don't even know about.
Just imagine Sue Larson, quote, "Life is like a bibimbap," 2016.
The easiest way to find me is through my website, which is realityshifters.com. And from there, you can find me through Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. And I've got that newsletter I talked about. You can find my radio show and all the rest of it. This is Cynthia Sue Larson, and you're watching The Doc Docs.
How much do you trust your brain? Just because you remember something, does that mean it really happened? Does perception equal truth? People have found print evidence of Berenstain Bears spelled S-T-E-I-N back around the time that it was popular. Does this prove the Mandela effect to be true, and that there is evidence that we are changing between different realities? Or is it just a simple mistake that our brains make from time to time because we're not perfect machines, and people just latched onto it because it was put into their heads? Either way, it is a compelling and fascinating thing to consider, that perception isn't always reality. Or is it? Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This was truly an interesting episode to me. I hope you guys found it interesting as well. Please subscribe to our channel below, and as always, follow all of our social media outlets. Until next time, this is Dr. Nick with the Doc Docs. You have been prescribed. We'll see you next time.